Cause and effect is really hard to figure out, and we often think that if this happens, then it's the result of something else that precluded it. And if we could just simply draw the connection between cause and effect, then we can have the answer to all the things that we ever wanted to know. The problem is that we live in a system that neither has a cause and effect, and often things that we actually do. I want to explain what do I mean by that. So you might be thinking, if I ate this donut today, then it was likely my fault that I ate this donut and I should feel bad about that. The problem is you have to look at it from many different dimensions and many different levels of analysis that don't necessarily relate to who you are as a person. First of all, the economic system put that donut within your community. It was actually the course of people producing this donut that made it available to you. You also have to assume that the government system allows donuts to actually be present within that particular community. You also have to look at access in terms of discussing donuts with your friends. Sometimes just simply merely discussing donuts really does matter in somebody's life. Sometimes it's thinking or having exposure to television commercials about donuts that matters in somebody's life. So what I want to point out is that there's so many different factors that go on. The world is actually layers of complexity. There's all sorts of ways that we can look at any economic system and look at it in many different angles. And we can say that, in fact, cause and effect is maybe a bit of a misnomer. And I think it slightly is. I don't think anything necessarily causes something else. It's very hard. And there's all sorts of tools, and we go through all sorts of discussions to figure out what is cause and effect, what causes something else. And most of the time we throw up our hands and we simply say, as researchers, even with all these fancy tools and spending years studying this stuff, we don't know what is the cause and effect. We think that something, some little thing, is actually leading to something else. And that's why we get into all these kind of crazy discussions about things that have been around for a long time, and we have pretty good evidence that it actually is the case that something is happening, like smoking causes cancer. We have pretty good evidence from that as far as I know. But, understanding why this cause and effect is there, or what is actually truly going on, is actually very, very difficult. And the other thing is that it doesn't necessarily mean cause and effect for you. It's often these tools are set up to be cause and effect in aggregate, that we are looking on average across a lot of people or a lot of things that you're looking at. That is what causes cause and effect, or that's what leads to cause and effect. It doesn't mean that specific individuals ever going to have those experiences. My grandpa was a heavy smoker, and he smoked his entire life, and he lived well into, I think he was in his 90s, I believe, when he passed away. It was a long time, but what I'm getting at is that there's so many different factors that play in. You can't necessarily know whether something causes and affects something else. You have to look at all these different factors to rule it out. But then even when you do that and you focus on one little tiny thing, the actual what's called effect size, how much it actually matters, and the substantive effect size, so this is thing, does it actually matter in the real world? Is there a qualitative impact of this thing? Does that actually have any say? Is that large? And most of the time it's actually not. It's spectacularly small to see some of these things. And we're happy to see, percentage points in terms of, does something actually matter? Fractions of an impact, basically, little tiny little impacts. So what I'm getting at is this idea that simply because something happened, that it caused something else, is just patently often not true. And even when you apply it to the real world, it just does not work out. This is the reason why we have physicians. This is the reason why we have managers. This is the reason why in the real world it often doesn't have the same result of what you actually found in the lab, is because that sort of cause and effect relationship is never clear. even with the best science, even with the best tools, is extremely hard to understand cause and effect. So my point is, if you have a donut today, don't feel like it's your desire letting you down or your motivation that's letting you down. There's a million reasons why you would have had a donut. Or if somebody chastises you for not doing something, or pokes fun at you or whatever, just realize that there's many reasons why something actually happens in your life that are independent of who you are, and you'll never know what those things are. That's the whole point of what I'm actually saying, is that there's so much that goes on in this world. So don't feel bad. First of all, don't feel bad if somebody says something to you that is interpreted in kind of a negative way. And then the second thing is, try to be kind to other people. Realize that this world is really messy. So even when you see people doing not great things in this world, realize that it's just messy. There's a lot going on that is difficult to explain, and there might be some unusual cause and effect thing that's happening that you will never even know because it's not even part of what you're looking at. My point is, just have some empathy. Be kind to other people. Realize that this world is difficult to explain. And even when you try to explain or you think you know what the answer is, it's probably not right. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.